Rogue states like China depend on the dark arts of politics, like propaganda and espionage. Here, facts are irrelevant. They can be minimized or exaggerated to measure. And this is exactly what China is doing in Xinjiang. It has unleashed a war on Uighur culture. At least 1 million people are in detention. It has all the makings of a 21st century Holocaust. But if you ask China, the world has got it all wrong. They claim to be running re-education centers, not labor camps. What does that even mean? Re-education is basically a form of brainwashing. The Uighur culture is being systematically dismantled. In its place, these people are being taught Han Chinese supremacy. And China's methods are brutal. Illegal detention, forced labor, torture, state-sponsored rape, and even medical experiments. In international jurisprudence, we call this a crime against humanity. But in China, they call it an internal matter. Every time the world moves against Beijing, it unleashes a propaganda drive. This time, the target is the United States of America. So what are the wolf warriors saying this time? They have published 2 videos. They feature disgraced American officials, Lawrence Wilkerson, a former aide to U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell, and Sybil Edmonds, a former FBI translator. What are they saying in these videos? Both Wilkerson and Edmonds think that Xinjiang is America's best bet to destabilize China. So naturally, Beijing has jumped on it. It is accusing Washington of funding terrorists in Xinjiang. We've heard the story before. But as usual, one crucial thing is missing from China's tale. That is context. Do not worry, we've got you covered. Lawrence Wilkerson's speech is from 2018. This is a man who helped sell the Iraq war to George Bush. But after all the death and destruction, he retracted his support. How convenient is that? What about Sybil Edmonds? Her speech is from 2015, 13 years after she was fired by the FBI. And for the record, Ms. Edmonds lasted 6 months in that organization. She is a known conspiracy theorist. So these are China's top sources, conspiracy theorists and disgraced military officers. And there's one more thing to note here. Both Edmonds and Wilkerson said that the US could possibly leverage Xinjiang. Possibly. They did not admit to any such American operation. In fact, looking back at American actions, overreach has not been an issue. Our complaint is the lack of concrete measures. Today, America loves to call itself the defender of Uyghurs, but that wasn't always the case. In the 2000s, the US was an active accomplice. They detained 22 Uyghur Muslims in Guantanamo Bay. So the Uyghurs are not just victims of China's war on terror, they've also suffered under America's war. Then came the presidency of Barack Obama. Would the multicultural president stand up for China's diversity? As it turned out, he chose the policy of silence. Obama did not raise the Uyghur genocide issue during his visit to China. Back then, no one knew where the relationship was headed, so Barack Obama decided to not rock the boat. Like it or not, it was Donald Trump who put the spotlight on Uyghurs, not out of love for this community, but because it was a convenient issue to tackle Beijing on. Nonetheless, it worked. In 2020, Donald Trump signed the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act. What did it say? All US government bodies would have to report on communist abuses in Xinjiang. These reports would define American sanctions in the future. Another law is in the pipeline, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. The House of Representatives has already cleared it. It is now up to the Senate to send it to Joe Biden. Now, this law would keep American firms away from the forced labor camps in Xinjiang. But Donald Trump's biggest move was declaring the Uighur crackdown a genocide. This was an indictment of the Chinese state. Calling it a genocide, think about what it means. The communist regime was placed on the same level as Nazi Germany. The problem is Donald Trump's actions were punctuated by flip-flops. There were reports that privately he supported President Xi's crackdown. And this is American policy in a nutshell. The right goals for the wrong reasons. Which brings us to the present stalemate. Last month, American and Chinese officials met in Alaska. It was more like a classroom squabble than a diplomatic meeting. China kept calling Xinjiang a domestic affair. But here's the deal. It is not. A genocide cannot be a domestic matter. So where are things headed now? Are more talks on the cards, or is confrontation more likely? At this point, we could be looking at more of what happened in Alaska, diplomatic meetings that descend into chaos, name-calling and allegations. Talks, you see, are successful when there's a basic understanding between the two sides. But China does not understand the concept of human rights. It is a headstrong bully living in a world of denial. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.